Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay, so this will be the second talk of what we're calling the basics of non-duality, based on the teachings of Upadesha Sahasri, the 1,000 teachings of Sankara. So let me begin with a couple of things. I had said that this book is a unique book in this, that the only book that we have that we can be sure is from Sankara. That's an independent work. He's not commenting on any ancient scripture. He's writing his own ideas, his understanding of Vedanta. So it's a free-flowing thing right from a Vedantic master, his own words. And it's a very subtle text, and it's not an easy text. If you really want to get to know this text better, I doubt if people have time for this, but there is a Swamiji that I highly recommend. His name is Prabodhananda, Prabudhananda, Prabodhananda. And he's given a series of lectures on this text, starting from the very beginning. I'm just jumping to 3 chapters in the middle of the text to just give you a flavor of the basics of non-duality. So, just as a little reminder, I had said last week that what Vedanta teaches is that there's only one reality and that's all that there is. But everybody doesn't see one reality. We all see multiplicity. We all see duality. That's our direct experience. So this Vedantic teaching seems to be contradictory, and nobody accepts it except Advaitins, in the sense that I described. There are other types of Advaita which accommodates the world, that one reality became all of this, or that one reality manifested at this, or all of this is not different from that reality because all of this comes from that reality. But those types of non-duality is not Shankara's Advaita. There is no manyness. Naiha nanasti. There is no manyness here. He who sees manyness goes from death to death. Where one sees another, hears another, knows another, that is small. That is death. Where one doesn't see another, hear another, know another, that is the infinite. That is immortality. So there are so many texts that say that there's only one reality and you are that reality. You're not something other than that. So in order to teach this reality, the very first step is this unique concept that in every person, the inner self, Pratakatma, the inner self of every being, is not the ego, but the witness of the ego. It's called the Sakshi, the one in which the I thought appears and disappears. This is the unique teaching of Vedanta, that the real self is the witness, the seer the, the observer, the subject, and not the object. That's the true self. So we all take this witness inside of us and we think that it's the ego. The knower is I know. But that I that knows, that's a limited knower. I know this, I don't know this, I know this now, I know that later. That changing knower is not the witness. The witness is the one who sees all the changes in that knower. That knower that appears in the waking state, the knower that appears in the dream state, the witness of both of those knowers is the self of Vedanta, the witnessing consciousness. If you take it that the witness is just the witness of your own mind, then I have my witness. Evelyn has her witness, Paul has hers, and there's many witnesses. But that can't be the case because this witness is the witness of time and space. There can't be many witnesses. The same witness in me is the same witness in all beings. Ekatma sarva bhuteshu. That witnessing self in me that witnesses my mind is the same witness that witnesses everyone else's mind. Then why don't I know what Evelyn is thinking or what anyone else? I only know what I'm thinking. I'm only the witness of my mind. In order to remove that misconception, the real witness has to be seen as the witness of the whole waking state. Just like you're the witness of the whole dream state. That witness is one. In the dream, there are many knowers. But the witness of the whole dream is one. That's the witness, not an individual witness, but the witness of the whole dream. That same witness is the witness of the whole waking state in which all the individual knowers and their means of knowledge and the objects of knowledge, they're all contained in the state, but the witness is unattached to the state, is unchanging. When the things in the state are changing, the witness doesn't change. He's unchanging, ever present, ever the same, whether the waking appears or the dream appears. That's the unique idea, that the witness is beyond time and space. He's only one. He never changes. He has no fear or desire or hopes or anything to reject, anything to acquire. He's ever peaceful, ever content. That's our true nature. That's the self of Vedanta. And but nobody takes themselves to be that unchanging witness. Everyone here listening to this takes themselves to be an individual. In time, I was born in time. I'm getting older in time. And in time, I will die. This is the idea that we all have about ourselves. Unless you examine it to see, is it correct? Is there a fact to be discovered that shows that that idea is a misconception? It's a wrong notion about myself. And that the whole purpose of Vedanta, that ignorance, that misconception, that I am this, I am an individual, and I have a body and a mind and senses, and I'm limited. That individuality, which I take myself to be, is a misconception. Now, let me say one more thing that's a little more subtle. when Vedanta says we have a misconception, it's not like I'm an individual and I have a misconception about something. And that when I remove that misconception, I, the individual, will then know the correct thing, me. But in Vedanta, it's not that the individual has a misconception and the individual has to get rid of that I am ignorant and I have to get rid of that ignorance. The very individuality, the idea that I'm an individual, is the ignorance. Taking myself to be an individual, not that I'm an individual and I have a wrong idea, and when I correct that idea, then I'll know what the correct thing is. I'll still be an individual. Vedanta wants to remove our identification with that individuality. Individuality, being a person, is the ignorance. It's not that the person has ignorance. Being a person is ignorance. And when you get rid of that ignorance by realizing I am the witness, then the identification with the very individuality, which is the whole cause of suffering. Because once I'm an individual, I'm limited. Then I see myself as the unchanging reality, and the individual is just something that's appearing in the waking state and is unattached to me. I'm unaffected by any of the activities of what's ever appearing. The states are just appearing and disappearing, to me, the witness. That's the perspective. If you take it that the perspective is, I'm in the world and I'm ignorant about something and I have to get, so I'm an individual and I'm trying to solve my problem by either getting money or getting sex or getting power or getting healthy. I'm trying to solve my problem. But the very individuality is the problem. Thinking that I'm a knower and that I want to know the truth is the problem. You're the witness. You don't want to know the truth. You don't need to know the truth. It's a false identification with something that you're not. One other thing about this. When this teaching says that's the only reality, that witness in you is the only truth, it never changes, it's always present, it's never hidden at any time. When the waking appears, it's shining, lighting up the whole state. When the dream appears, you can see you're the witness of that dream. It's only when you take that perspective, drishti, that sakshi drishti, that viewpoint from the witnessing point of view, that we say the world is an illusion. The world is like a dream. The world is only an appearance. It's only from that point of view. When you're in the waking state, you can't say this world is an illusion. This world is absolutely real. Science is real. The laws of cause and effect are real. If I do something, I'm going to get the result of it. It's all real in the state. Vedanta doesn't say in the state. It's just like in the dream. Until you wake up, until you see that the dream was just an appearance. While you're in the dream, it's all real. You can't say in the dream, oh, it's all an illusion. You can imagine having a debate with a friend in a dream, and you're trying to convince him this is not real. It's just a dream. Your friend will think that you're crazy because the very fact that he's talking to you shows that the duality is real. As long as the dream continues, from that point of view, it's real. It's only if you can adopt the point of view of the witness to shift your vision from the ego to the witness that lights up every thought, every perception, every phenomena, content of consciousness. Then from that point of view, we can say the world is like a dream. It's only from that, and it's only in Vedanta that we can adopt that point of view of the witness. There's no way in the dream, the people in the dream, they can't see the witness. They can't infer the witness. Whatever they see is an object. It has qualities, but the witness is unthinkable. You can't think of the witness because it's the witness of all thought. You can't imagine it. You can't perceive it. So even though it's everyone's true self and it's never hidden and it's always available, unless it's pointed out to you, as long as the mind is extrovert, filled with desires and hopes and fears, that witness is 1,000,000 miles away. But upon turning inwards, we can intuit the truth of this teaching in our own experience. Shankara's experience was no different than ours. He saw the world just like us. He had waking dream, deep sleep, just like us. And he was basing this teaching on his own experience, and it culminated in that he was able to realize, to recognize, to discover the fact that his true nature was always present, never sublatable, could never be negated at any time. Whether things appear or don't appear, it doesn't negate the self. And from that point of view, he wrote these texts. So this witnessing consciousness, which is the most important concept of the self, the unique concept that the self is not the body, the mind, the senses, or the ego, but the consciousness in which they appear, that which objectifies everything, that one witness is the self of non-dual Vedanta. So last week, I read a chapter called The Nature of the Witness. And that when we recognize this witness, we become free. Because when we don't know the witness, when we're ignorant of that witness, then I take myself to be something other than that. That feeling that I'm other than the absolute, I'm an individual in the world, is only because we haven't discovered the fact that my nature can't be negated. It can't be thought away. It's something, the only thing that's indubitable. I can doubt everything, but that's the witness of doubting. So with that, I hope that when I'm talking like this, the only way that the listener, and there's 16 people listening, some people may have been listening to this for years, and when I say, oh, you're the witness, the knower, the observer, the ever-presence, the choiceless awareness, people know what I mean, and they can adopt that viewpoint, and then from that point of view, nod that yes, I am unattached. I am unaffected. I have no birth or death. That's the correct understanding of myself. And the previous idea that I was a limited being, suffering, wanting, needing, fearful, was a mistake about my true nature. So, to show that what I'm saying is not because I'm a guru or a wise man, I'm just repeating what this Vedantic teaching is saying. You shouldn't take it on the authority of anything that I'm now saying, but whether this is in accordance with your own experience. That's the unique thing about Vedanta. It's not religion where you have to have faith in it. It's not a belief that you're going to have to die with and then see if it's true at the grave. Right here, right now, available to everybody at all times. It's an ever present fact. And if you have the qualifications, which means ultimately an introvert mind, that's the qualification. All of the spiritual practices are to introvert the mind so that I can discriminate what is the subject and who is the object, what is the witness and what is witnessed. The witness is only called the witness in relation to the witnessed. But when the witnessed is seen to be a dream, means it has no reality. It just appears to be real. Then the witness doesn't witness anything. He was only called the witness in relation to something that doesn't exist. Because we think there's a waking state, he's called the witness of the waking. Because we think there's a thing called a dream, we call him the waking, the witness of the dream. But when we realize that both waking and dream are equally false, they're not real, then the witness is no witness. It's one without a second. It was only a device for people who think there's such things as waking and dream. Then from that point of view, the self is the witness of the whole state. That's not a very easy perspective to take, because when I say the whole world, I usually leave this part out, the whole world of which I am a knower. But the whole world has to include this body, mind, senses, and ego is part of the world. It's not something separate from it. It appears with the world, just like the dream ego. He's seeing the dream world, and he feels that, oh, this whole dream world. But the real viewpoint is that we have to take the dream ego as contained in the dream. And I'm the witness of the whole dream, the light in which the whole thing appears, that eternal light that's ever shining, whether the states appear or not. The states are not real. The only reality is the unchanging witness. So he's not even a witness. We only called him that for the purpose of teaching. The highest truth is he's one without a second. Okay. Now, to show that this is not my own idea, forget everything I just said, but within that context, now let me read Shankara's text to you, and then we'll go back to it. Last week, due to technical difficulties, the text broke in the middle, and I think we lost some of the momentum. I'm going to quickly read the 10th chapter once again. There are many things that I would love to stop and explain and clarify, but just for the flavor of it, let me read it with no commentary. It takes about 10 minutes. Chapter 10. The title is The Vision of the Truth of the Nature of the Seer. Drishi, the seer, the witnessing consciousness, the vision of that. How can you see the witness? You can only see the witnessed. What does it mean, the vision of the witness? What will you see? The subject can never be objectified. And in order to see something, it has to have some form, some name, some shape, some qualities. But the witness is the witness of all names, all shapes, all qualities. It has no qualities. Consciousness has no qualities. It's called nirguna, with no qualities. So how do you see it? You have to intuit it as the seer. I am the seer who can never be seen. I am the witness who can never be witnessed. That's called the intuition of the self. So with that in mind, I am that supreme absolute reality, which is pure consciousness, always clearly manifest, unborn, one only, imperishable, unattached, and all-pervading, like space, and non-dual. I am therefore ever free. The person who realizes this proclaims, I am therefore ever free. Pure and changeless consciousness, I am by very nature devoid of all objects. Whatever appears to me cannot be me, and it can't be in me. The subject can't be the object. Whatever I'm aware of can't be in me. I am devoid of all objects, unborn, and never established in my own true nature. I am all-pervading absolute reality. I am in the front, to the side, above, below, and in every direction. I am unborn, deathless, devoid of old age, immortal, self-effulgent. Self-effulgent. Everything else, the content of consciousness, has to be lit up by consciousness. But the consciousness is always lit. It's always self-effulgent. It's called Svayam Jyoti, self-lit, Svayam Siddha. It's established in its own glory. It doesn't need anything to establish it. It's on the basis of consciousness that everything else is established. It is all pervading and non-dual, perfectly pure. That witness in you never gets sullied by anything at any time. Having neither a cause or effect. If I'm this individual, my parents are the cause. If I do something, that's the cause and it produces an effect. This whole world is nothing but cause and effect, time and space. But the witness, which is the witness of all causes and all effects, is not a cause and it's not an effect. And I'll say something else. Nothing ever causes it, and nothing is the effect of it. Why? Because it's one without a second. It is without cause and effect. It is ever contented. The witness doesn't want anything, need anything, hope for anything, feel a lack of anything. That's the very nature of the self, ever contented with one bliss. I am free, ever free, yes. No perception, whether it is in the waking, dream, or deep sleep. What that means is my idea that I have waking and I have dream and I have sleep is already a misconception. And nothing that happens in those states or the absence of happening in those states affects me. When you look at sleep as a state, then it comes and goes, and it's just like the others. When you look at sleep from the actual experience, then it's pure, it's the witness. Sleep from the point of view of experience is the witness. Sleep from the point of view of waking is a state of unconsciousness. The mind has become unconscious. But from the point of view of experience, sleep is just all content has been removed from consciousness. That is deep sleep, your true nature. No perception, whatever, in waking, dream, or deep sleep belongs to me, but it is merely due to delusion. I am happy. I am sad. I am worried. I want this. I want to avoid that. All of these thoughts, no thought ever affects me. The witness of every thought is unaffected by any thought. Affects me, but it is due to delusion. Why? Because I am identified with the thoughts. Even though I'm the subject and the thoughts are objects, when there's a happy thought, I say, I am happy. When there's a sad thought, I naturally say, I am sad. I've identified myself with the thought, even though I'm the subject and the thought is an object. This mixing up of who I am and what is appearing is the ignorance. But when you've discriminated the self from the not self, the content from the consciousness, the witness from that type of discrimination, which only Vedanta reveals. This is not a worldly discrimination where you can discriminate things in the world through science, through art, through poetry, different ways of understanding the world. But this is totally unique in that it's not about the contents of the world, but that the whole world is an object to me. That type of discrimination is called Vedantic discrimination. It reveals something that no other discrimination reveals. For these states have no independent existence. The waking state, can it exist without me as the witness? Can the dream appear without me as the witness? They have no independent existence. Their only existence is dependent on me, the real existence. I am the truth of the dream because the dream has no existence. So it can't exist apart from me, but it's not me. It's just an appearance. That's the nature of waking and dream. From the point of view of the witness. In the waking, the world is real and nobody can reject it, no matter how much, whatever you do, no matter if you stand on your head, if you chant mantras, if you Go to the Himalayas. You can't get rid of this. It'll be there wherever you go. So there's no way out of this except to realize the truth of the self. As I am changeless, the series producing pain, the body, the intellect, the senses are not myself, because they're all changing and I'm changeless. So they can't be part of my nature. They are not myself, nor are they mine. I am not this body. Oh, well, maybe the body is mine. It's not me and it's not mine. I am asanga, unattached. I own nothing. I am non-dual. Moreover, they are unreal. Why are they unreal? They appear and disappear in consciousness. They're constantly changing. When the dream appears, it totally falsifies the waking. Just like as soon as the waking appears, the dream is totally falsified. They equally cancel each other, but the witness of both those states is never canceled. And that's why it's the only reality. Moreover, they are unreal, just like dream objects. There being a reason for their being that way. What is the reason? The fact of experience that the waking seems real as long as it's continuing. But as soon as the dream comes, that appears as the waking. There's no more, the other state, which I called waking, is now nowhere. It canceled it totally. And as soon as the waking, what I call waking now, it totally canceled the dream. Both the states have a beginning and an end. How do you know? Because they begin and end in beginningless and endless consciousness. But it is true that I have no change, nor any cause for change. Why? Because I am one without a second. If there was something other than me, then it could have an effect on me. It could change me. But because there's nothing here except me, like in deep sleep, I'm the only consciousness. Nothing could affect me. Even when the waking is appearing, it's not affecting me. I have no change, nor cause of change. Why? As I am one without a second. As I do not possess a body, the only way you can feel that I don't possess a body is by changing your perspective from the identification with the object to the discovery of who is the subject. In that discovery, the identification with the body is sublated. Until then, we just take it as a fact. I am this. But I, the subject, can never be this, the object. But due to a lack of discrimination between I and this, consciousness and the content, I've taken I to be this. Therefore, since I am without a body, I have neither sin nor virtue. As long as I have a body, then I perform actions, and some of those actions are classified sinful. Some of those actions are called virtuous, dharma and adharma. But in me, the witness, I don't do anything, so I can't perform any sinful actions, nor any virtuous actions. I am free from all actions. Neither bondage nor liberation. If you can take your stand in that witnessing consciousness, you'll see in that witness, there's no bondage. In your true nature, you are ever free. You don't have to become free, so there's no liberation. And you were never bound, so there's no bondage. That's the truth of it. But because I've taken myself to be Ira, I am bound. I am suffering. I am afraid. And I don't know how to get out of this mess. No matter what I do, I can't put an end to it. Everything I do falls short because death is waiting for me. Yama, the god of death, is waiting to gobble us all up. We're here for a moment, as long as I'm Ira. But the moment I see that I am timeless awareness, then I am unborn, unaffected by the body. I have neither bondage nor liberation, neither a caste nor an order of life. Sankara was writing this in the 8th century, where the culture was, there were 4 castes: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyavas, and Shudras. And the society was divided up. So everyone felt, I am a Brahmin, I am a Kshatriya, a warrior. But this idea that I am a Brahmin refers to the body. The one who sees that I am the witness has no caste. And in those days, they had what's called stages of life: student, married, retired, and wandering monk. These were the stages of life. But the witness is not a student, brahmachari. He never gets married. He's not a householder. He doesn't have to retire to the forest. So he's not a vanaprastha. And he doesn't become a wandering monk. All of that is in the realm of ignorance. I have none of it. Beginningless and devoid of all attributes. Consciousness is not an attribute of the self. Consciousness is the very nature of the self. Like heat is not an attribute of fire, because you can't take the heat away and still have fire. Heat is the nature of fire. Light is the nature of fire. When you look at it one way, you call it heat. You look at it another way, it's fire. But it's the very nature. Consciousness is the nature of the self. It's not an attribute that it could lose at some time. I'm conscious when I'm awake, and then I become unconscious when I go to sleep. That idea is only because we think I'm conscious because I have a body, and I become unconscious when the body is not appearing. But consciousness doesn't depend on the appearance or disappearance of the body. Neither caste nor order of life. Beginningless and devoid of attributes. I have neither actions nor their results. Since I don't have a body, mind, or senses, I am free from all actions. What that means is everybody is doing actions to get something or to avoid something. And they also think I can do something to become free, to become liberated. But no action could ever make you free. No meditation, no going to temple, sitting in a cave, breathing in and out. Whatever you do can never free you, because the very idea that you're a doer is because you've taken the witness to be a body, mind, and senses. I have neither actions nor their results. Therefore, I am the Supreme One. You can say that to yourself. I am that Supreme One. If you see that witness in you as your true nature, you say, I am that. I am the Supreme One, without a second. Though appearing to exist in a body, I do not get attached, because that witness, even though it appears to be in the body, is very subtle. Let me explain what that means. If you take the witness as all-pervading space, this is just a worldly example, and I take a bunch of cups. In each cup, there's a thing called cup space, and the cup space seems to be limited by the cup. As long as the space is identified with the cup, it's a little space. If it's a bigger cup, it's a bigger space. But in the nature of space, there's no divisions, big space, little space, because all the cups exist in space, are pervaded by space. It's only from the point of view of the cup, but even though the space is in the cup, because it's subtle, that means because it pervades everything, it's not limited to the body. We all think the self is in this body. And if we examine the body and then go deeper, the senses, and go deeper, the mind, and then go deeper right to the ego, we think we've reached our conscious inner self, I. But that I is not the most deep, the most inner, the consciousness in which the I appears. That self never does any action, is never bound, and doesn't have to achieve anything. Therefore, although in the body, I do not get attached because I am extremely subtle, more subtle than space. I pervade even space. Just like in the dream, all of the things that are appearing, from the gross earth to the more subtle things, water, fire, air, space, well, the consciousness that's lighting it up and pervading the whole thing, when I say pervading, giving existence to it, it's not that it's entered into it. When we say the space pervades the whole universe, it's not that the space is moving, it's present. Pervading means ever present everywhere. That's what pervading means. It's not doing the activity that there's a world and it's pervading it. But just like the space, which doesn't go anywhere, is all pervading. In that sense, even though the self is in the body, apparently, it pervades the whole universe. Like the ether, which though all pervading, does not get tainted. Even though the self appears to be limited to the body, it's not tainted by any of the qualities of the body. Though I am the Lord, the Sanskrit word here is Ishvara. This is a long discussion. How can that witness be called the Lord? Why is that called the Supreme Lord, the witness in you? That Lord, that's who the Lord is, by the way. That witness in you is God. You are God. That is the Lord. He rules over the whole universe, because without him, the universe can't exist. Just like the dream can't exist without the Lord. that witnessing consciousness is called the Lord in relation to the world. When the world is seen to be just an appearance, then the Lord is not the Lord. Just like the witness is not the witness. It's only a relational term. That witnessing Lord, though I am the Lord, always the same in all beings, beyond everything that's perishable or imperishable, and therefore the supreme self of all, and without a second, I am considered to be of a contrary nature. I am considered merely taken to be, even though I'm always the Lord, I'm considered to be of a contrary nature due to a misconception. It's merely, it's even though I say I am fat, I am thin, the witness doesn't become fat or thin. The ignorance doesn't make the self any different than what it is. And knowledge doesn't make the self different than what it is. But because of ignorance, it appears to be, I am this limited body. And because of that, we need to know the true nature of the self. And that's the only thing. No action, only knowledge will remove that ignorance. Not distanced by anything from itself and untouched by ignorance. The self is untouched by ignorance. When I say I am born, I'm getting old, I'm going to die, that ignorance doesn't affect the witness because it's the witness of all of those wrong notions. It doesn't affect the self. Ignorance doesn't touch the self, and knowledge doesn't touch the self. When I say I am the witness, that doesn't change the witness. When I say I am the body, that doesn't change the witness. The witness is the witness of both of those thoughts. One is called knowledge. I am the self, the witness, Brahman. I am the body. One's called ignorance, one's called knowledge. But in the self, there's neither ignorance nor knowledge. In me, I am untouched by ignorance and false conceptions. The ignorance is, I am the body. The false conceptions is that because I'm this body, I'm a doer, I'm a knower, and I'm an enjoyer. I'm an individual. The very ignorance is individuality. It's not that the individual has ignorance. The idea that I'm an individual, that has to be removed. Not you people who are listening to this talk now. It's not that you don't know something and you're going to know it and then you'll be free. That knower in you is the ignorance. In the witness, there's no knower, there's no knowing, and there's nothing known. That's only in the waking state. There's knowers, knowing, and known. In the dream, there are dream knowers, dream known, and dream knowledge. But in the witness, there's no knower, knowing, or known. It's pure consciousness, one without a second. There is a saying of the scripture that one who has the sure conviction about oneself, the sure conviction about oneself that one is the absolute reality, the witnessing consciousness, he is never born again. When you realize I am the witness, you can't be born, because if I'm the witness, I'm not in time. I have no parts. I can't disintegrate. I can't transform. I'm beyond space. I can't go anywhere. That type of immortality, not physical immortality. This body is momentary. It comes, it's going to go. It can't last. But the witness, which has no body, is unborn. So it is free from all false conceptions. Even the false ideas don't affect the witness. It is free from all false conceptions, and it is free from all actions, and therefore the self is very pure. Without a second, and established in my real nature, just like the immovable space, I am thought to be connected with the powers of seeing and other perceptions due to misconception. The only way that I can become a seer, a knower, a doer, is if I have a mind and senses. Unless I take myself to be identified with the mind, I can't think of anything. If I'm not identified with the senses, I can't perceive anything. So unless there's this false identification, I can't be a knower. Being a knower is the outcome of ignorance. Having a mind by which I know things is already, I've taken myself and superimposed on it something that I'm not. Without a second and established in my real nature like the immutable space, I am connected with the powers of seeing only because of a misconception. There is a saying in the Shruti that one who has this conviction is never born again. There is no delusion and there is no birth. For when the cause is not there, when the ignorance is gone, when the cause is not there, there cannot be the effect of ignorance. Because I don't know myself, that's the cause. The effect is I've taken myself to be this. That's called samsara, worldly life. And there's no way out of it except removing that misconception. Once I'm this, anything that I do to get out of it can never remove the ignorance, because the very idea that I'm doing is because of my identification with the body, mind, and senses. 11, false conceptions of people such as mine and this and thus, and this is so, and I am so, and that is not so. They are all due to delusion. They are never in Brahman. All of those thoughts, they're not real. Whatever appears, the content of consciousness, they don't affect Brahman. They're not something second from Brahman. They have no independent existence apart from yourself. And therefore, they can never affect you. They are never in the self, which is ever auspicious. Mangalam. The self is never sullied by anything. It's ever pure. You don't have to purify yourself. You have to purify your mind. But the witness is ever pure, ever auspicious. It is the same in all beings. That means the inner self in me. When I say inner, means the truth of everything is the inner self. Like water is the inner truth of the ice cube. It's not that the water is somewhere in the middle of the ice cube. What you call an ice cube is nothing but water. The water pervades the ice cube, but there's not two things there. The only reality is water. So these things are never in me. I am auspicious, the same in all, and without a second. All grief and delusion are removed from those great souls. They're called Mahatmas, Paramahamsas, great souls. Who's a great soul? The person who has the capacity to discriminate their self from the not self, the witness from the witnessed, the mind from the witness of the mind, the thoughts from the witness of the thoughts. That's called the Mahatma. He can, everybody else is identified with that mind, and they think the mind is conscious. But the mind is just the content of consciousness. It has no consciousness. But we think we've identified consciousness with the mind, and we think the mind is conscious, the body's conscious, the senses are conscious. But look in a dream. All of those individuals in the dream, you ask them, are you conscious? Yes. Do you see the tiger? Yes. They seem as though they all have consciousness, but they're all just objects to the witness of the whole dream. Nothing there had consciousness. You were the only consciousness for the whole dream. The same way, everything in the waking state, minds, bodies, senses, they're all objects. They're not conscious. But we've superimposed, due to a lack of discrimination. The Mahatmas, the great souls, are those that have the capacity, have made their minds pure enough, subtle enough, introverted enough to be able to separate these two things, the unreal not self and the real self, the unreal witnessed and the real witness. Those Mahatmas, those great souls wherein this arises, this pure knowledge of the non-dual self. It is the conclusion of those who know the meaning of the Upanishads that there cannot be any action or birth in the absence of grief and delusion. What that means is, first he says there can't be any action or birth in the absence of grief and delusion, shoka and moha. What that means is, delusion means taking myself to be the not self. That's the only delusion in Vedanta, in non-dual, basic non-duality. There's only one delusion. And because of that delusion, there's grief. Once I'm in that delusion, I must suffer. And once I'm in that delusion, I must do actions. Once I'm this body, I must act. Once I'm this mind, I must think. Once I'm this mind, I'm going to say, hey, I have doubts about this teaching. Oh, I like this teaching. Oh, well, maybe it's right. Maybe it's all. But the witness of all of those thoughts, which can never be doubted, which can't be affirmed or negated, because it's the witness of every affirmation, every negation. They also are just objects in consciousness. There can be no action or birth once their delusion is gone. When you get rid of your ignorance, when you get rid of mixing up two things that are totally different, like light and darkness, the witness and the witnessed can never be the same. The subject and the object are of opposite natures, but we've all mixed them up. That's called delusion. Sanskrit moha comes from the root muj, to mix together. to falsely bring together two things that are really the same, different, is called delusion, moha, confusion. I'm confused about myself, and therefore I grieve, and therefore I do actions, and therefore I'm bound. But for someone who's free from that delusion, because they know their true self, then the effects of that delusion immediately are canceled. This right knowledge described by me is the highest. One becomes liberated and unattached like space if one becomes perfectly convinced of this truth. This word, convinced of this truth, doesn't mean that you have a conviction about it. That, yeah, I really think this is it. I'm convinced, the arguments convince me. It has to be that you directly intuit. The conviction spurs from a discovery of a fact that you didn't notice before. It's upon this discovery that you become convinced, I am that. And that puts an end to delusion. Okay, so that was Shankaracharya's exact words. I hope it sounded a little like what I was saying in the preface to reading this text, that this is the Vedantic teaching from Shankara, from me, from the Upanishads, it doesn't matter. And it's something that every listener has to decide, is it really true? The only way you're going to know whether you're the witness of your thoughts is by introspection, antarmukhi, turning in and examining, self-inquiry. What is the self? What is the not self? This is the discipline that's required. But if you're able and have the capacity to do this, if your mind has become subtle enough, introverted enough, pure enough, the witness and the mind are easily distinguished. But if the mind is extrovert, filled with desires, hopes, fears, getting this, losing that, then this discrimination is not possible. And that's why this Vedanta really, it has to be drunk till you're saturated with it. The mind has to be saturated with this teaching over and over repeatedly. Is it correct? Is it just another concept? Could it possibly be true? It sounds inconceivably that it can't. How could there be no duality? How could there be no teachers, no students, no world? What kind of teaching is this? So obviously it takes a person who has the capacity. It's called adhikari, the qualifications for Vedanta. I had a teacher who used to say, Vedanta is not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry. It's not a subject like grammar or poetry or mathematics where you can study and learn it and improve. This is a study by which the most subtle thing, more subtle than space, because you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it, you can't smell it, there's no inference about it. You have to directly intuit the fact of the matter. And that's the task of the student. And the task of the teacher is to repeat this over and over so that in repeating it, the listener introverts his mind and is able to discriminate the thoughts and the witness. because everyone, the Buddhists, everybody in the world has taken the mind as what is conscious. Only the Vedantin says, no, there's a witness and the mind is just an object to consciousness. That's the unique idea. The ego is not conscious. It's just a thought in the mind. In the waking, I think I am Ira. As soon as the dream comes, I'm a different Ira. And I'm the witness of that Ira. And in deep sleep, I'm the witness of the disappearance of both of those Iras. Myself is not Ira. Only from that perspective. That's what Sankara is trying to push us to view things from that perspective. So, okay, I thought I would do chapter 11, which is more about the witness from a different angle and more subtle points about it. But I won't do that. We've gone well over an hour. So let me just do this. I'll open it up. If there's a few pressing questions, we can address it. I'm going to repeat. There are a number of YouTubes on this Upadesha Sahasri. If you just Google the 1,000 teachings, Upadesha Sahasri, it'll come up, Swami Prabodhananda. Very beautiful, much better than what I'm able to do. But we all do our best. So I'm hoping that when I'm talking like this, it shares with you the vision of Vedanta, Vedanta Darshana, the vision of the Upanishadic teachers, that witnessing consciousness, what it is, who it is, what's its nature, what happens when you don't know it, and what happens when you know it. All of those subjects have to be discussed in great detail, but here was a synopsis. Okay, any questions? Okay. Let me say, there's no obligation to ask any questions. It's good occasionally for people to challenge Shankara or to challenge me, and so that when I try to reply, then everybody, because your questions are the same as everyone's questions. I have the same questions too. I could ask 100 questions right now about this text, and we could discuss what are good answers and bad answers. But if you don't have a question, that's not it. I'm hoping what it means is I was very clear. And while you were all listening, you were able to say, oh, from that point of view, I am birthless, deathless, immortal bliss. I am everything that I've been searching for. I've always been that. I'm that now. I'll always be that. If you were able to do that, even for a few minutes, there's a benefit from that. Because we're not going to, oh, I have another announcement to make. Next Thursday, we won't have a class. Evelyn will decide, I think she's thinking also to take a break, but because of an event that I can't get out of, I'm going to have to miss next Thursday. And the final class, where I'm going to read 2 chapters and discuss both of them, it may run over a little, we'll finish up the basics of non-duality, the witness, the witnessed, ignorance, the basics of non-duality. Chapter 11 and chapter 5. Okay, I enjoyed it. Let me end it with this prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. That is fullness. This is fullness. From that fullness, this fullness appeared. Take this fullness away, and fullness alone remains. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.